Good afternoon. Kind of a late start on the video today because we had to chase a fox away from our chickens. And, well, that's always exciting around here. Al got pretty riled up about seeing a fox come walking down our driveway. But I wanted to start with yesterday. Just a quick recap. We remember that Jesus was weeping over Jerusalem. And then, because the hour was late, he went back to Bethany with the 12. So we start this morning off with Jesus and the 12 in Bethany, and they're headed to Jerusalem. So all four Gospels recount how Jesus rode in on the colt of a donkey into Jerusalem on Sunday, Palm Sunday. And then Monday, he's back in Bethany. Jesus going into Jerusalem, he sees a fig tree. He goes up to the fig tree, and there's no fruit. There's only leaves. And so he curses the fig tree, and he says to the fig tree, "You shall never bear fruit again." Why is this in there? I mean, why is Jesus cursing a fig tree? It says, Jesus being hungry saw a lone fig tree with leaves only. So this is a figurative illustration. The fig tree has been used many times as a representation of Israel. And Israel wasn't bearing any fruit. And Jesus is using this illustration, saying that Israel, being a fig tree, isn't bearing any fruit. So he cursed this fig tree so that the disciples can see a figurative way of saying that Israel isn't bearing any fruit. This is in response to Israel's rejection that will take place. So Israel is going to reject Jesus. And it's the spiritual absence in Israel, not out of frustration. It's the spiritual absence of Israel that he's cursing this fig tree, not because he's frustrated with the fig tree. We learned yesterday that he's omniscient, which means he's all-knowing. He already knew where the donkey was. He knew where the colt was. He knew exactly what to say to the owner of the donkey. And the owner of the donkey just says, okay. So we know that he knows everything before it happens. He knew that this fig tree was there. He knew that the fig tree didn't have fruit. He goes up to it. There's no fruit on it, and he illustrates to his 12, there's no fruit on this fig tree, meaning Israel, and he curses it because it doesn't, and the next time they see this fig tree, it's withered up. It's gone. It's dead. He's giving a parable. He says, "Truly I say to you, if any of you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what was done to the fig tree, but even if you say to this mountain, be taken up and cast into the sea, it will happen." So he's using this fig tree in a bigger illustration, an illustration of faith to the disciples. So the disciples are astonished that he cursed a fig tree and the fig tree withered. But now he's saying, this is just an illustration of faith. And even if you have a little bit of faith, and that faith can be as strong as to say to this mountain, pick yourself up and throw yourself into the sea. Many times we hear this verse and it's translated wrong. It's not because you have faith. It's because your faith is in such perfect alignment with God's will that you would never ask anything outside of God's will to be done. So therefore, everything that you ask when you're inside of God's will is done. To me, that's an amazing thing. Absolutely fantastic to think about the amount of faith that it takes to have a mountain pick itself up and throw itself into the ocean. But it's only because you are in line with what Jesus said. It's only because you've surrendered your entire will to God's will. We're out here in the woods, and my little dog is walking around, and it's a really beautiful place to stop and think and ponder. And I think about, if I had that kind of faith, I see these trees around here, and I'd be able to say to the tree, pick yourself up, carry yourself up to the house, cut yourself into 20-inch lengths, and then split yourself so that I can burn you in my fire. I mean, everybody would think I'd gone nuts. But if I had enough faith and I was in alignment with Jesus Christ's will, with God's will, and it was God's will to have that tree do that, then it would be done. It would be just like that. Jesus is going up to the temple once again. This is the next day. Yesterday he was in the temple and he looked around and he wept over Jerusalem. Today he's going back. The temple cleansing. So he sees the money changers. He sees the merchants. The merchants are guys that are in the outer court, and they're selling birds for sacrifice. They're selling animals for sacrifice at a great profit. Just one example is the money changers. He specifically mentions money changers. So the money changers wouldn't accept the Roman money. It was kind of different. The entire world that they lived in revolved around using Roman money. But then you get to the temple, and they would only accept the temple money. So the money changers are changing Roman money for Jewish money, the Jewish acceptable money. But they were making 10 to 12% on every exchange. So if you need $1, they'd charge you $1.10 in Roman money to get the Jewish money, so that you could walk over and put it into the coffers and make your donation or your offering. Then the money changer would go over, take the Jewish money out, bring it back to his table, and sell it the next day for 10 to 12%. And then he'd take the Roman money, he'd take that and put it in his pocket and, do what he wanted with it. But he's changing this money at 10 to 12% every day. They're using the same money. It's not like they're putting the money into the temple, into the coffers, and then using that money for the temple. No, they're just reselling the same money over and over and over and over and over and over again. So you have these money changers, and Jesus comes in. He says, "Is it not written that my house shall be a house of prayer, not a robber's den?" These are prophecies. The first one is out of Isaiah. The second one is out of Jeremiah. Isaiah 56:7, and the second is Jeremiah 7:11, where he's talking about this exact time when Jesus drives out the money changers, drives out the sellers of animals, and clears the temple ground. And there's even more to it than that, because as Jesus goes on, he starts to heal the blind and the lame. So now he's healing the blind and the lame, drives out the money changers. Guess who's mad? The Jewish select. The ones who hold true to the temple, the ones who run the temple, they're making a big profit off of this, and they're getting pretty mad because Jesus is not. So this is happening day after day, that they're converting money to the Jewish acceptable coin, reselling it. Jesus comes in, drives them out. Now you have the healing of the lame and the blind. So you have merchants that are just bringing their carts full of merchandise right through the temple grounds, because it's a shortcut. Instead of going around the temple, they're just taking a shortcut going right through. And Jesus calls them out on this, and he says, you're not being reverent to what the temple is supposed to be. It's a place to worship God, not to travel with oxen, not to travel with animals and merchandise. This isn't a marketplace, but that's exactly what they had turned this into, is just a marketplace for everybody to make money off of. This was the outer court, the Gentile court. This is supposed to be where the Gentiles come, the non-Jews, to come and worship God. That's what this court's supposed to be for. But the priests of the temple, they changed it into a marketplace. So now Jesus is going back to Bethany, and tomorrow we get to see something new. I hope you stick with me. Today was an interesting day. There was a lot going on that was told about in the Old Testament that's happening right now in Jesus' time. Until tomorrow, love you guys very much. Have a great day.